Hi everyone. Yes. Well, I finally found the chapter in the book where the musician talks about what Mama Cass saw at Cielo Drive. Because there's always been a rumor that Mama Cass was the first person to find the bodies at Cielo Drive, and there's a musician called Jimmy Webb, basically, who she spoke to. But I also, when I was researching this, found out something else about Jimmy Webb. But what she said doesn't add up as well. Spoiler alert. And I've also clipped a little bit more of his biography just because he was sitting with Phil Kaufman when he heard about the Cielo Drive murders. So I thought I'd clip a bit more of his biography. I'll get onto reading that now. I'll say hello to everyone anyway. We've got Robin and Chris again, everyone. Yeah, they've got 29 viewers, so that's quite good actually. Oh, and the other announcement I wanted to make was as well. There was a woman who knew Billy Doyle and Tom Harrigan. Who's contacted me. I'm going to interview her. I'll do a recorded interview with her over the next couple of days, and that'll go live on here. And I've finally got a picture of Billy Doyle from 1980, and I'll show that when I do the recorded interview. If you've watched this channel for a long time, you know it's driven everyone insane that we couldn't find a picture of Billy Doyle, but we now have one. Oh, and I can confirm he's not the guy in the Whiskey A Go-Go picture, because I thought he might be the bloke that Mama Cass is talking to in that picture. You know, the one with Pick Dawson in Whiskey A Go-Go. He's not the guy that she's talking to there, no. Doesn't look like him. Yeah, so that should be interesting. And she knows a few things. I won't spoil it though, I'll wait until the interview happens. And I'll get on with what I was going to read out anyway. So there's not much to read out, but it's kind of a bit more interesting. How off it is. Right, so he was with Phil Kaufman at De Campo Encino or something like that. The place is called. That's important. Otherwise, it loses its impact. At the last line. Right, turn on the TV. Garth barked as the bird sang sweetly, flitting from the windowsill to branch around the sunny old house. I walked past my rock and roll heaven-stained glass windows over to the entertainment centre. I flipped on a screen that came alive with a shot of Cielo Drive in Beverly Hills and an announcer speaking in a low voice, shocked tones, about the murder of Jay Sebring, Sharon Tate and her unborn child, as well as Abigail Folger, Steve Parent and Wojtek Frykowski. Phil and I looked at each other aghast, all thoughts of transcendental journeys to fairy tale kingdoms blotted out in a split second. Sad-eyed and tongue-tied, journalists managed to blurt out that all those at the horror house had been stabbed and mutilated before death. An image of Sharon flashed in front of my eyes as we trained at the Beverly Hills Fencing Academy, her forehead wrinkled with concentration as she thrust and parried, deftly manipulating her foil and oblivious to my admiring gaze. Then another vision of her dancing with Roman Polanski at a party at Victor Lowndes' in London, happy and at ease, clowning around with Bill Cosby, who had been wearing only a towel. I remember Jay Sebring with his screen star handsome face, hands quick and expert as he sculpted my hair, simultaneously offering shrewd and compact advice about making a smooth passage through the wilds of Hollywood. I thought of the night I blew up his 427 Cobra and smiled in spite of myself, remembering his aplomb as he inspected the smoking collection of charred parts in his engine compartment. He had never raised his voice or displayed the slightest annoyance or anger that night. In fact, he and Sharon were seemingly two of the gentlest souls. The Flower Children had died that day, irrevocably and forever. The stereotypical long-haired hippie in tattered jeans and tie-dyed t-shirt, thumbing a ride on the freeway with a guitar case over his shoulder, became suddenly an object of suspicion and dread. The primary subject of most conjecture was why? Why these celebrities? Later, it would become apparent that Charles Manson's objective went far beyond such a limited agenda as celebrity. Yet it remains ironic that such a horror had its ground zero issues as prosaic as the frustrated dreams of an inept and ignored songwriter. In the aftermath, flying keyboards and magical mystery tours seemed a strange fare for adult conversation. All of Hollywood, especially the celebrated and famous sector, seemed to be shifting into a new gear, as panicked phone calls were made in shocked tones, meetings cancelled, children rushed home from expensive schools, and business in the bodyguard ranks and gun stores skyrocketed. An early version of a black and white security camera was installed at my gate in order to see callers before they were admitted. In our neighbourhood lived Sergio Mendes, David Cassidy, Billy and Marilyn Davis, Aretha Franklin, who would soon sell her house to Michael Jackson, and many other persons who thought they had cause to worry. The Spahn Ranch den of assassins lay only a 20-minute drive west of Campo de Encino, which is where they were when they had a thing being reported. Right, and then this is from the same book, same pages. Years later, I will be sitting in a quiet London bar with Cass Elliot, a cherished friend who was always seeking a special song I seemed unable to write. She confessed in a whisper that unknown to Vincent Bugliosi and the judicial world at large, or for that matter anyone else except her sister and the two of us, she had been the first witness to arrive on that bloody one-sided battlefield in the early hours of Sunday morning. A party in the offing, and looking forward to seeing our friends Sharon and Jay, she had walked like an automaton past the slain pizza boy in his car, up to the desecrated body of Abigail Folger, and stopped, knowing she did not want to see what lay in the house beyond. Suffering from paroxysm and shock, she had retreated home to her bedroom and stayed there for days. She had told me, as we both smoked and consumed shots of tequila, that she felt to have told the story would have only further validated its bizarre reality, making it more indelible. She was still, 5 years later, crazy from it and having recurring nightmares. It had become a vivid yet unreal silent vignette, a scene clipped from a horror movie and left by the cleaner curled on the cutting room floor. By Jimmy Webb. Right, and that was a picture of him there as well, you saw in the corner. So, as you can see, she says she saw Abigail Folger. If you look at this, right, so if X marks the spot where she walked to, right, how did she not see Frykowski? Are you sure did she mean she saw Frykowski? Because it's possible that she wouldn't be able to tell who it was that she was looking at, because it was so messy, basically. So maybe she thought it was Folger. But another thing that crossed my mind was, did they maybe swap Folger and Frykowski when they moved the other bodies? But she did really see Folger there. And also, if she didn't see Sebring on the porch, then she must have gone after they'd moved him into the house. So when did she go? So that raises so many questions. Yeah, this is what I think as well. She must have driven, mustn't she? She must have driven up there. She can't have walked up the drive herself, because apparently it is a really steep drive. People have gone and walked up it just to see. And it is steep. I can't see her walking all the way from her house to there. She must have driven up, mustn't she? But she doesn't mention that. That's not mentioned. And also, I tried to work out. I just tried to work out where Stephen Parent's car was, because she said she walked past Stephen Parent's car and she called him the pizza delivery boy. And no one knows exactly where his car was found, but it's somewhere in the paved parking area. If you look at where it says paved parking area, and probably under foliage. And they reckon that people moved it after he'd been shot as well. So the car wasn't just left where he was shot, but it was somewhere in. So she must have walked. So she must have parked herself in the paved parking area and saw Steve Parent's car. But it was dark, so she might not have necessarily noticed there was a dead guy in it. She might have just thought there was a guy sleeping in it. I don't know. Yeah, she must have had to push the button. There were no lights. Yeah, well, there is this in the police report about the June buggy and a motorbike going up and down, isn't there? And she had a lavender June buggy. I think she already knew about the hit. So vehicles have been surveilling Cielo for weeks before the murders. Well, I don't know about that, really. I can believe she might have gone up there if the phone lines had been cut, when the phone didn't work, maybe to see what happened to them. Or maybe she really just had gone up there to school, or because she thought there was a party going on or whatever, so she did just go up there. Yeah, this is it. I wonder why why they say pizza delivery boy as well, because that's nothing like what he was it? Yeah. And it says she walked past like an automaton, so that's presumably she saw that he was dead and just carried on walking. So she was so shocked she just carried on walking. Suggests that she did see him dead. because it was quite gruesome. But all the only pictures I've seen of Stephen Parent, he's blurred out because he was shot in the head a few times, and that wasn't it. It's horrible. Yeah. This is it, and I don't know why she calls him a pizza boy even, but yeah. And also, it doesn't make sense that she says it's Folger that she saw. Because to get to Folger, she'd have to walk past Frykowski. She'd have to, and walked all the way over there, and it was dark as well. Go off the screen. You can see the whole picture. Right, she'd have had to have walked off the path all the way over there to have looked at Folger. And why didn't she comment on Frykowski? Unless it was Frykowski she actually saw, and she didn't realise that it was Frykowski because he was in such a mess she couldn't tell who it was. Or unless she's talking about Jay on the porch. She actually did see Jay on the porch. Who knows? We'll never know, because it sounds like she never told anyone else but her sister as well. So only her sister knows anymore, because she was too freaked out to say anything to anyone. So she never told anyone else but her sister. No, it doesn't say anything. It doesn't say anything about what she was wearing. No, this is not it. No. No, she just went up there to. Well, it says in this account that because there was supposed to be a party, she went up there to see her friends because she thought there was going to be a party, and she saw a body outside. She thought it was Folger, but Folger is in completely the wrong place for her to have seen her, because if you assume the garden was dark, and she's way off, like down the lawn from the path up to the house. She might have seen Sebring lying on the porch, or she might have seen Frykowski lying quite near the path. But there was no lights, so like how could she have seen Folger? So that doesn't make sense as well. And also she says she didn't tell anyone, she just went to her bedroom and stayed in her bedroom. But I don't believe that. I think she would have gone and alerted everyone. So like, the account is off, yeah. Oh god, yeah. Is that what you're talking about? No. No, that was the Redlands bust, wasn't it? God, no. Marianne Faithfull and Mama Cass were quite different, yeah. Yeah, well, it doesn't say who it comes from, but there's a little bit about Billy Doyle in the police report that I assume must have come from Mama Cass. And it said that John Phillips is supposed to have forced her to go to the police. He's supposed to have got violent with her to force her to go. She was too scared. But they all believed it was Pick Dawson. So, like, they forced her to go and talk to them about Pick Dawson and Doyle. But all she said about Doyle was he showed up with a big load of cocaine and she told him he had to leave. She told him he couldn't stay. So she didn't tell the police all the shit about her being engaged to him and him, being a fiance for years and all that, or whatever. Yeah. Well, this is the other thing. Yeah, we've never, if you haven't seen the other thing as well, I should show, because, the official narrative says that Jay and Sharon died in the living room and never moved. But there's actually a big pool of Jay's blood outside on the porch and not much blood underneath his body, if you look at the crime scene pictures of him. So, like, it does look like Jay's body at least was moved. And there is another account where Susan says that she saw Folger next to them as she walked out. So I do wonder now if maybe Folger and Frykowski's bodies got switched for some reason. Why the hell they would do that, I don't know. But yeah. Sorry, just looking at the chat now. Yeah, well, apparently in the Manson file, Nicholas Schreck says John Phillips was seen climbing back over the wall to get out. So he was there, apparently. And I can't believe that Mama Cass would go back and not tell anyone else. She must have alerted other people. And she thought it said pick on the door. They all thought it said pick, didn't they? So, like, maybe, she would have run back and told people, wouldn't she? Surely she must have told someone something. She can't have just run and not said anything to anyone. Yeah, the blood used to write pig was Sharon's blood. And Susan said she got it by walking back and forth from the living room to her body, didn't she? Yeah, because it does appear to sort of run out of blood as well. If you look at it, it's like the last letters are weaker, and that. Horrible. And it does actually, we were debating it, actually. It looks like maybe it was altered and it originally did say pick. And someone came back later and added the bit to make it a G, so it said pig. because it looks like they were trying to frame the Canadians, doesn't it? Really, when they staged the crime scene, so they maybe it did say pick originally, and the people that were staging the crime scene. Oh, this book. Well, yeah, check out this article about Jimmy Webb. If we're going to talk about if you've seen with Jimmy Webb, it doesn't seem like a bullshit, but you never know. Right, but look at this. Jimmy Webb left his ex-teenage wife out of memoir, says report. So yeah. We say he's not a bullshitter, but he may have done some careful editing of his memoir, The Cake and the Rain, which was published earlier this year. And when was this article from? 2017. So 2017 this came out. Yeah. First met him in 1968. She was 12 and he was 22. And they began their affair a year later, so she was 13. And her mother had an attorney calling her every day to press charges against Jimmy for statutory rape. Oh my God. And she revealed their son Christian was 17 months old when the duo got married in 1974, when she was 16. Well, she was 16 when she gave birth, and their son was 17 months old. So she was nearly 18 when he married her, but my God, yeah. And I'll make sure that's linked down below if you want to read it in more detail than that. And he didn't mention that in this biography. Totally didn't mention, and he had all his kids with her, apparently. He had about 4 kids. He was married to her for years. But she was 12 when he met her, and 13 when they struck up their relationship. So, yeah, there's another person associated with all this lot who was into marrying underage girls. But their violent deaths had nothing to do with any of that, guys, right? It was all because Charles Manson hypnotized these kids with LSD. That's why they all died, yeah. Nothing to do with any of the weird shit. Yeah, that's it. Why has he never mentioned the Cass story before? And why didn't he mention his wife that he was with for all those years that he had all those kids with? Yeah. He has a vivid imagination. Yeah, well, he does write music, doesn't he? He sounds. It's the thing as well, isn't it? They're saying that this is what they say now. They do have their own religion and their own sacred texts and all that, and and they can no longer cover it up anymore, can they? It's shocking. People are more likely to believe this now than they ever would have been before, because people said it sounded too far-fetched. But no, I think it really was, and is. It's disturbing. Yeah, I can believe she did. And the only other person she said she spoke to it about was her sister. Spoke to her about it, should I say, was her sister. So yeah, unless her sister tells us any more, we won't know any more than that. But it's a strange account because, yeah, she says she saw Folger. But Folger was miles up the lawn, so how did she see Folger? Unless she walked all the way up the lawn in the dark and walked past Frykowski and didn't see Frykowski. So yeah, who knows what she actually saw. And I don't believe that she went away without saying anything as well to anyone. Because he says that she just said she ran to her room and just stayed in her room and never told anyone. But I can't believe that she didn't go and tell everyone else as well, tell the rest of Hollywood. And also, we have no idea what time it was. She doesn't say what time it was. On that word, he says paroxysm as well. That could mean screaming as well. That's like if you ever seen like someone who's had a really severe shock, someone who's seen something really traumatic footage of it, and they do this thing where they're sort of spasming and screaming. That's a paroxysm. So yeah, that's like probably what happened to her. If she saw Frykowski's body or whoever's body it was she saw. So she could have been the woman screaming at 4 a.m. basically. No, yeah, it was just to create confusion, yeah. And it was to try and frame the Canadians. It was to try and frame Pick Dawson and Billy Doyle. And also the point of putting the ropes around their necks was to connect it to Jay Sebring's kinky sex life of liking to tie people up. It was all aimed to make it look like it was about, their perversions or whatever, basically, wasn't it? And there's like more and more stuff, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, in the 90s, when I was a teenager, it was less. Well, no, it really wasn't. It really wasn't. Yeah, it was quite normal when I was a teenager as well in the 90s to go out with men who had 18 or older. Yeah, when you was a young girl, it is disturbing how normalised they did manage to make it. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I think it looks more like they were trying to frame the Canadians than the Black Panthers. That's what all the staging seems to point to, doesn't it? The writing that looks like it could say "pick" on the door, and also apparently they say that the police pulled Frykowski's pants or trousers back up because they were pulled down when they found his body, and that was supposed to be showing about the Doyle incident that was spoken about. Like, yeah, but they're supposed to have raped Doyle basically, aren't they? So it was about that. Exactly, yeah, and they wanted to cover that up because no one wanted to admit that they was associated with all that, did they? Yeah. Oh, well, looking at Cass Elliott's life as well, she was awake a lot in the night, and so were these people, and she thought it was a party. That's the thing, yeah, because the maid didn't get there till about 6 in the morning, so it would have been light by the time the maid arrived. So this would have been sometime in the early hours of the morning. I've always thought she's the person at 4 a.m. screaming. You hear a woman screaming at 4 a.m. So I've always thought that was her. But yeah, it gives you no idea at all what the time was, just as that night. And it says in the early hours of Sunday morning as well, so after midnight. That's all we know. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And also, if it's not just junkies, but fucking the way musicians live as well, they end up sleeping in the day because they're traveling between gigs. So, like they sleep in cars while they're fucking traveling, and that it just messes with you working that kind of, job. And yeah, her drug problems would have not helped with that as well. That's it, yeah. Yeah, that's it, yeah. So the musicians are also, yeah, stay up all night and sleep all day. It's not just because of her drugs. But it wouldn't have helped. But yeah, but this was just like these were normal hours for them. But it's weird that a pregnant woman lived in the house and they were still keeping those hours as well. That's the other weird thing, isn't it? You'd think. But it was like these weird progressive times, weren't it? They were trying to break social norms and that. Maybe pregnant women were behaving differently or whatever. Who knows? It's ridiculous. That's the other thing I'll never understand why Sharon stayed there when she could have gone and stayed with Joanna Pessett or someone. Hmm. Yeah. He says in Chaos, yeah, that he didn't think he had, but he doesn't know. He was unconscious. They drugged him asleep. He said he didn't feel sore there though. But again, that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. They could have given him muscle relaxants or whatever, couldn't they? And other people seem pretty certain that they did as well, so it does seem like it's true that it happened. Yeah. Of course, we've only been going 30 minutes, and that was pretty much all to read out. Yeah. Did he report it to? Because yeah, I've not fully listened to his tapes in detail. Does he say it when he's interviewed? Because I know he also said he vowed to kill Folger and Frykowski as well, didn't he? So why Folger? Was Folger filming it or whatever? I don't know why. But why did he say Folger? Why did he vow to kill Folger? Hmm. But the gate didn't lock properly. Apparently, you just pushed the button and it opened. The gate wasn't locking. So this is why I wonder why they bothered to climb over the fence. You know what I mean? Because they could have just opened the gate. The gate just fucking opened, didn't it? It wasn't locked apparently. It wasn't. The security system didn't work. There was a wire to a speaker, but the speaker didn't work. It's just a button. You just push the button and the gate opened. It wasn't locked. Yeah. Yeah, he got arrested. Well, they had to hand themselves in. They were suspects. Him and Harrigan and Pick Dawson were suspects, and it came on the radio. When I interviewed this person, yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah, but they had to hand themselves in and go and get interviewed. And Billy Doyle's tapes are on YouTube. Cielo Drive found them and has put them up on YouTube, and their audio archive. Yeah. Yeah. But also, as well, it says in Mama Cass's biography that they had a penchant for picking up young men off the Sunset Strip and stripping them and filming them or something like that. I read it out in the other Mama. Yeah, I've done a whole playlist of Mama Cass streams as well. If you're new to the channel, and because a lot of people haven't watched the one about her health and drug use and all that, and that one's very interesting. Because this might explain why she was so addicted to Nembutal as well, if she was having nightmares and couldn't sleep because of what she saw that night. Yeah, and I can believe that she did see it, that she did go up there. I think that she did. I always have thought it. Ever since I heard it, I can believe that, definitely. Like I say, she told this guy that the only other person she told was her sister. So her sister's the only one that can tell us anymore now. And I doubt she will. She didn't publish it in her biography. She's probably not going to tell us, is she? Yeah, it was in a London bar as well. And also, looking at the date as well, because it's 5 years after, so this must have been shortly before she died. Was this when she was in London playing her last show? I'm trying to work it out. Yeah, I've got to work out the dates. Because there's always been rumours that she was killed for what she knew about the Manson murder. So this was the first time she spoke about it, and then she dies. Yeah. Yeah, we assume so. There's stuff in the police report that sounds like it could have come from her, and it said that John Phillips forced her to go to the police because of the Pick Dawson stuff. And I think, yeah, I'm not sure who owned it. Fucking for some, why do I think Mick Jagger owned it? Fucking no, she was at a party at Mick Jagger's house, and I know Keith Moon was renting the apartment that she died in. But fucking for some reason, I think Mick Jagger actually owned that apartment as well. I'm not sure why. I'll have to look into that. That might just be from a fever dream. Yeah. Oh, did you know Tommy as well? Yeah, because other people have said that. Yeah, you'd have to join my Facebook group because we're trying to compile more information about them. Because I just want to compile it for the history of this situation, because people won't know. People, these things will never get recorded. That's the fan on my computer. It's an annoying looking fan on my computer that I can't do anything about. Yeah. Nielsen owned it and Ringo decorated it. You can't win. Belonged to the singer Harry Nielsen. Yeah. Yeah, but I've done a whole stream about her death and what it says about her death in her biography, and it's very thorough, and it talks about her inquest and all this sort of stuff. And exactly what it said, and talks about what the manager said he removed from the room. He removed a vial of liquid cocaine and some sleeping pills from her room before the police were called. Yeah, it was his apartment. Because one of Keith Moon's PAs walked into the room to get some clothes out of the wardrobe for Keith Moon while Cass was dead on the bed and just didn't notice she was dead. Thought she was asleep, basically, yeah. Yeah, it is weird though. Fucking these places, yeah, the same people die. So many people die in these places. Cursed flats. So like, yeah, Horn Avenue in LA. Hmm. Texas up there, cutting the wires. Having read everything I've read about this, I no longer believe they cut the wires on the way in. I think that was done later. I think it's all bullshit. And the wires were cut later when they were staging the crime scene. I think they initially walked in there expecting to rob them at knife point or something like that. They didn't intend to actually kill everyone. But it went wrong. It got out of hand and they killed everyone. And it was later that the wires were cut, not before. They weren't that professional. Yeah, that's the other thing as well. He didn't have to if a new parent was there as well. The parent and Garrettson were in on the robbery, and Parent was killed last. Because there is this about Stephen Parent was on probation for stealing audio equipment. And there's supposed to have been a stereo that was stolen from Cielo Drive that isn't mentioned in the police report because they hold things back for a control, don't they? Because only someone who was actually at the crime scene would know that sort of thing. This is probably why the exact location of Stephen Parent's car is so shady as well, because the only people that had been there would know exactly where it was. So they hold back these things. Yeah, I don't believe that he was killed first as well, though, definitely. Whether he knew them or not, I don't believe that they killed Stephen Parent first. I think that he tried to make a run for it while it was going on. Even if he was just visiting Garrettson and didn't know them, I think he tried to get away when he realised what was going on. But they got him before he could get away. Yeah, good point. Why would she eat a ham sandwich? She was Jewish. And also, they said there was a sandwich in the room, but no bite had been taken out of it. She hadn't eaten it. So, yeah, she didn't eat it. So she didn't choke on it. Yeah. Yeah, well, I've done streams where we talk about all the sound reports, the noise reports in the police report. I mention it in some of the one of the Drug Burn Part 2 streams that I did and all that. But there was lots of noises and things being heard all night. It didn't go quiet. That's the thing. It contradicts what was said in court so much. If you read the police report on the amount of noises that were being heard all night and all that sort of thing. And also, yeah, there is a lot of people that say it was a lot more convoluted and took a lot longer. But I definitely don't believe that. Well, they obviously were not in that guy's garden hosing off by 1 a.m. because you can still hear people at Cielo Drive according to the sound report. So they were still there. Yeah, that's it. It is very coincidental, isn't it, that he just happened to be leaving as they arrived. That's it. I think that he was already there and he wasn't. Yeah. I think he left when he saw what was happening. Or he was maybe in on a robbery, but he didn't like it when they started killing people, so he tried to run. Maybe. I don't know how Orthodox was. Orthodox she actually was as well. No, she was into her parents owned a deli, so they must eat some kind of cold meat. What meat were our Jews allowed to eat? They must be allowed to eat some sliced cold meat, wasn't it? Yeah, it's just not pigs in it, so they're allowed to. Must be allowed to eat chicken and. Hmm. Yeah, that's it. They have all very much stuck to the story of Stephen Bint. Oh, it's moved now. They all have stuck to the story about Stephen being killed first, yeah. And like about no one else being involved but Tex. Yeah, Tex going up and doing all of it, even though he was slashed and shot at the same time. Because that's another point where it gets confusing. So it's like, so Tex must have had a gun in one hand and the knife in the other hand, right? And been slashing him before he shot him. Right, Linda? Yes, Mr. Pugliese. Right. Pastrami. Anything that has cleft hooves and cheese cut. All right. But yeah, it's just the account's very off. How did she see Folger and not Frikowski? Maybe she just didn't know who she was looking at because it was so messy and horrible. What? What, Harry Nilsson, you mean? When he passed away, there was an earthquake and it hit so hard at the funeral parlor causing his casket to fall into the ground and they never got it back. What a fucking hell. That's unusual, isn't it? That ranks as weirder than what happened to Graham Parsons after he died. Yeah. Bloody hell. No, I've got to show this. That's terrible. Yeah. Where is it? With a lobster trap and cooked it to trick a Jewish girl and added it to scrambled eggs the next morning. He was, wasn't he? He wasn't that tall. If you look at photos of him, and also I wondered, was she seeing Jay on the porch as well? Did she walk up to the porch, and it was actually Jay on the porch, and she just couldn't, she didn't get close enough to actually identify who it was. Because even to see Frikowski, she'd have to have walked off the path. Look, I'll get the picture back on. That. See that you see where the path is up to the porch. So she'd have to have walked off the path over there to the first body, which is Frikowski. But she says she saw Folger. So to see Folger, she'd have had to have gone all the way over to where the X is. So I wonder, did she see Jay lying on the porch and just couldn't identify who it was? Yeah. Yeah, and then they have different washing up bowls to wash up the two things and that everything, don't they? Yeah, they don't mix it at all. It is, yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat. This is so random what I'm talking about. Everyone in the chat is talking about kosher food, basically. Yeah. I'm saying, yeah, but it's odd. So I think maybe she got there before Jay had been moved off the porch. Because there's probably people watching this that haven't seen all the other streams that I've done. So I should get another slide up. Got to stop sharing this to do that, though. Wait a minute. All right, if you look at this, the photo in the middle is Jay Sebring's blood on the porch. And they say that Jay Sebring died in the living room. And Bugliosi tried to say that all the blood on the porch was because of footprints. The police traipsing through blood. But this is the pictures of all the different pools of blood on the porch. And the big pool of Jay Sebring's blood there. This is why we're talking about Jay Sebring at one point was on the porch and his body was moved into the house. So he didn't actually die in the living room like they tell us he did, basically. Yeah, this is what I'm thinking as well. She didn't know when she says Folger, says the wrong name. And also looking at the state of them, she probably couldn't tell who she was looking at. And like I say, she would have been so shocked and horrified. And it was dark as well because there wasn't a lot of light around that place. I was surprised there wasn't more outside lighting. And I suppose in the 60s you wouldn't have had a load of outside lighting, would you, to your garden? But yeah, considering it was such a fancy house and they used to have parties and all that, you would think that there would have been more outside lighting, but there wasn't, so it wouldn't have been very bright. I think it's possible she just didn't know who she was looking at, and they were unrecognisable anyway. So that's why she said it was Folger. Oh yeah, Bugliosi wrote a book saying everyone should shut up and Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK as well. It's like they're mocking us, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. Yeah, well, there's like 4 little lanterns in it. I've seen a picture of them, and that they were like right over by the pool. And there was only like literally about 4 of them, and they were really, really dim. So even if they were switched on, it wouldn't have actually lit up very much. Yeah, well, yeah, everyone. A lot of people say they were invited to a party there that night, didn't they? Yeah. What do you mean the photo of Joe Sebring's blood? That. No, if you look at the crushed bush, if you take that into account, the rest of his body was lying in that bush, and that's just the lower half of his body and part of his leg. Actually, it's not too small. It does actually look like he could. And other podcasts have overlaid how the body would be laid and have shown it quite clearly how he would have been laid, and it is possible. It's not too small. If you take into account that he was lying in the bush as well, he was half on the bush. He wasn't all on the porch. If everyone who claims to be at that party was actually there, that part of the cliff would have fallen off and tumbled down the mountain with all the weight of the people. Then the blood is Sebring's apparently, because Sebring and Frykowski had distinctively different blood types, and Jane they all were different somehow. They could tell the difference, and that blood is Jay's apparently. That big pool of blood. And there's a footprint, isn't there, in blood? That's Susan's footprint. Because she in court, and she's admitting that she had bleeding sores on her foot that night, and she couldn't wear shoes because her feet were so sore, and they were bleeding. So there's it's probably her own blood that she's got a footprint of when you see it. Yeah. Yeah, but not that much of it. Look how much of the bloody blood there was. How could that all be cross contamination? Yeah. They almost have cut themselves. The amount they were stabbing. It's crazy, yeah. Yeah, I think she probably saw Jay on the porch, and so maybe she got there earlier than 4 a.m. Or it was after that, after 4 a.m. when she saw Jay, when she saw the porch, the people on the porch or whatever, whoever it was. Or maybe she got there after people were already there, shifting the bodies around. Who knows what she really saw, and she wasn't saying. It sounds like she was so traumatized by what she saw, she couldn't talk about it. She was only just starting to become able to talk about it, and then she died, unfortunately. But I don't believe she was killed. I think she just died as a result of her health conditions, basically. If you watch the stream where I talk about it, there's she had enough health problems that she could have just died. It wasn't anyone murdering her. Yeah. And I thought you will get cut or cut yourself, yeah. Because your hand slips about. But they had the knives they used would have had hand guards on, so maybe not. Maybe not have slipped about, but yeah. That's one thing. There's 70 people watching, that's crazy. Most people I've heard watching, I think. Yeah, the housekeeper. And that's it, yeah. She just disappeared after the trials, but she wasn't a famous person. She was only like a maid, wasn't she? Like, where would she, She wasn't a famous person. But yeah, no one seems to have found her and interviewed her or anything, do they? Because she must have seen the stereo was missing and stuff like that, and that was withheld from the public. Because Billy talks about, they took her up there and showed her around the crime scene and said, "Was anything missing?" And so she must have noticed it, because stereos in those days were huge, weren't they? It wasn't a little tiny thing that you could have not noticed had gone. It would have been a huge, great thing, and wheels, wouldn't it? They would have had to wheel it out. And so she must have noticed that. Well, she changed her name and moved to Philadelphia, because she didn't want to be hounded, I suppose, yeah. Oh, it is saying 69 now, yeah, 69 people. Oh, good, earlier today as well, I was at 666 subscribers. They went up, yeah, I've gained loads of subscribers today for some reason as well. So, yeah, welcome if you're new here. Yeah. Yeah, this is it. This is a fact about violence as well. Knives are more personal, but when you're categorizing how violent a person is, going up and stabbing someone is considered more violent than shooting someone because, yeah, for that reason, it's more personal. You go up and you're actually feeling the knife cut them. So people who actually, if you look at it, cases of stabbing, most people don't stab someone more than once. In fact, a lot of people can't even pull the knife out once they've stabbed the person. So you have to be a special type of violent to pull the knife out and stab a person a second time, even. So to stab someone as many times as these people were stabbed is pretty crazy, basically. 71, now it's going up to 71 again then. It was at 69, wasn't it? Yeah. So someone who claimed to be a teenage runaway staying at the house below Cielo that had a ton of stories about the seemingly open door policy when it came to parties up the hill. Because that house was owned by this Rudy Alto Belly, wasn't he? And it's like it was always a party house. Whoever rented it, it wasn't just the Polanskis that rented that it happened for. So yeah, it was always a party house. Even bloody who was it? James Woods recently tweeted that he was a client of Rudy Altobelli. He was his agent. Rudy Altobelli was James Woods' agent. Then he tweeted that he'd read Chaos because there's something about Rudy Altobelli in Chaos, isn't there? Even though he was listening to the audio version of Chaos. Yeah, because they didn't have DNA evidence, did they? They couldn't separate it. They could only separate the blood types. So if the perpetrators had the same blood type, then yeah, there's no way they could differentiate between. I think they might have been able to tell if it was a man or a woman's blood for some reason. I don't know if that's absolutely true. If in the 60s they could. I know DNA didn't happen until the 80s, did it? Until like the early 80s, I don't think. I've got a feeling they could tell if it was a man or a woman's blood for some reason. Yeah, this is what Cielo was, and the history of it as well. It's sad because Sharon Tate grew up in France, didn't she? And that the history of that house, if you look at it, it was built for a French actress, and it's built to look like the way the houses look in Normandy, I think. And Sharon Tate really loved the house, so that's probably one of the reasons that she stayed there, because she loved it, because it must have reminded her of the houses she saw when she lived in France, and that was why she loved the house so much and wanted to stay there. Yeah, this is it. I've never seen that information as well. What were Tex and Susan's blood types? I've never seen that information either. Yeah, so I don't know. She spent. There was an army base in France as well, though, I'm sure. And she'd have lived on American army bases as well, so wouldn't have really seen that much of actual the countries that she lived in, I imagine. Yeah, yeah. He was stationed in Tuscany at one point. Yeah, so she would have lived in France at one point. Hmm. Yeah, Michelle Morgan, and there's a YouTube video showing loads and loads of photos of her sitting around the house just after it had been built, and it's made to look like a villa from a French villa. So that's why she liked the house so much, which is sad. So that's another explanation as to why she was reluctant to leave and she just wanted them to go. But yeah, I'll still never understand why she kept staying there if it got that crazy. When she could have gone and stayed with Joanna Pettit or whatever and just insisted to Roman, I'm not going back there until those people leave or whatever. Poor cow, I just feel sorry for her. It's horrible. Yeah, they could. We don't know, do we? Yeah, of course they could be the same. We don't know. But any of the killers were stabbed significantly enough for there to be this much of their blood, is there really? Right, is it on the right picture? Yeah. Right? None of the killers were stabbed significantly enough for it to be that much of their blood. We would know about it if they had wounds big enough for that to be the killer's blood, wouldn't we? It would be quite a small amount of the killer's blood. Probably the footprint from Susan's foot is probably her blood. And it would be small amounts of spray or a few drops of the killer's blood, wouldn't it? None of them were significantly cut, or we'd know about it, wouldn't we? It's to do with the subtypes as well, yeah. It is to do with the subtypes. Yeah, it was just inadequate anyway compared to DNA evidence today. And they also didn't test blood. They listed loads of blood as assumed same source. There was more blood outside, way more blood outside apparently. But they just said assumed same source, and only tested one spot and stuff like that. So some of that could have been the killer's blood or whatever. We don't know because they didn't even bother to sample it. They just said assumed same source and shit like that. And people I've spoken to who actually work in law enforcement say it's weird. It looks like they were told to stop. That was the impression they got. It says it looks like they were recording the blood and then they suddenly got told to stop. And so they didn't complete recording the blood evidence for some reason. Like I say, and there's a lot of stuff that suggests they didn't want this case solved. Like it was the press that found their clothes and knives, their bloody clothes and knives, not the police. And when the kid found the gun, even the kid knew to carefully carry it by the barrel. But as soon as the policeman walked in, he just picked it up, opened it, and took the bullets out. Even the child knew not to do that, but as a policeman. So it all looks very, very dodgy. It looks like the police were deliberately sabotaging it, didn't it? And they weren't really trying to solve it. They didn't want it solved. But what they did, you managed to fucking take samples of it, paints a weird picture, doesn't it? And there's more of the victim's blood outside. And victims who are never supposed to have got outside, they're supposed to have been stabbed entirely in the living room. Large amounts of their blood is outside. And also how much of the evidence has been kept. Like was the clothing that the nightdress that Folger was wearing. There's also a rumour as well, I've heard this, that they put a sheet over Abigail Folger's body at the crime scene, and then they took the sheet off her body and didn't even take that with them. So evidence could have stuck to the sheet from her body, and they just never took the sheet and never analysed the sheet. Like, have they still got the clothing of the victims and all that? And J. Sebring's clothing and that? Because they can do old DNA, can't they? There are ways now to test really, really old blood and find DNA. They might nowadays. What evidence have they got? What are they doing to try and find out? This is it, yeah. This is what I mean. Like, have they still got Sharon Tate's clothes? That she was wearing a bikini, wasn't she? And there was sort of like a baby doll nightdress. And also, J. Sebring had clothes, didn't he? Obviously, they're all fully clothed, weren't they? Have they still got their clothes, and could they test that now? Because the only one that I've heard injured is Susan bleeding from her feet, and Krenwinkel saying she hurt her hand because she hit bone, but it was more like her hand felt bruised than her hand was cut. But maybe Krenwinkel cut her hand as well. And and text stabbing so frantically and all that, I can't. He must have cut himself slightly. They must have all somehow, nicked themselves. So yeah, I do take that point. Yeah, there must have been the killer's blood around as well. And they didn't bother to record all the blood. Apparently, they didn't record all the blood. They just said assumed same source for blood that was around a general area and stuff like that. And also, we've not seen everything as well. They haven't released everything. They've got more evidence probably than there's more photos that they've never released. So there might be more blood evidence. But they just haven't told us, you know. Yeah. He must have. Yeah, I've never heard that he did. I've never positively heard that, but he must have. If you think about it, yeah, just the amount of stabbing he was doing, and so frantically, they must have all cut themselves at some point, mustn't they? Well, 66 people. Better than 3 sixes, I suppose. 67 now. It's been up again. Let's talk about a scar on his hand to the chaplain dude. Because he's got a scar on his eyebrow as well from the belladonna trip. Are you sure he wasn't referring to the scar on his eyebrow? Because he had to have his eyebrow stayed up after the belladonna trip. Could be that. Hi everyone, yeah, we'll be coming to an end soon because it's gone over an hour. But yeah, there wasn't really a lot to read out, just what it says in that Jimmy Webb's biography. And it's interesting, yeah, because he was sat with Phil Kaufman only like a 20-minute drive away from Spahn Ranch as they heard that Sharon Tate had been killed. And so they must have been getting ready to go out and do the La Biancas as they were all hearing it. Only 20 miles away, you know, it's just weird, you know, to think about it. Yeah. Oh, I don't think Jimmy Webb's going to like me since I shared that article about his teenage wife as well, yeah. Because, yeah, it also came out after he wrote his memoir. A girl he started a relationship with when she was 13 came out and said, and he married her when she was just about to turn 18. But their kid was already 17 months old. And he'd been with her since she was 13. And then he just doesn't mention that at all in his memoir, apparently. And she's pissed about that. That's why she spoke to the press. Yeah, that's another thing that people say. They assume when they killed Perrin that that was Garretson and they killed Garretson. So that explains why they didn't kill Garretson, because they thought they already had. Yeah, his belladonna scar. Well, it's what he actually took was Datura as well, and there's a that's kind of crazy. The kids taking Datura now. The amount of bad Datura trip stories there are. I wish people knew that there was one of the Manson murderers took Datura. It might put more people off taking it. Sharon was escaping to the front door, and Watson was stabbing Fikowski because this bit of blood. Yeah, yeah. It will take everything off the screen. Oh no, I don't actually, because it's this picture on the end. You see this blood over here by this bush that's away from the door. That's supposed to be Sharon's blood as well. So she got away from the door. She got that far away, at least we know that. And it's quite a significant amount of blood as well. So she was cut quite significantly there, wasn't she? And that stain that you see on the steps there, I don't think that is blood. I think that is just actually a stain that was already there. But if you look at the other picture, you have to screen for that is also meant to be Sharon's blood by the doormat there and in the doorway. So it looks like she was stabbed again in the doorway, doesn't it? Jimmy Webb and Glenn Campbell were close and both into young girls. Tanya Tucker was young when she hooked up with Glenn. Michelle Phillips was only 16 when she moved in with bloody John Phillips as well, weren't she? They were all at it. Dirty fuckers. Yeah, somebody fell in the bush. If you look at the damage to the bush, so if you take into account part of his body was in the bush as well, that is not there is space for his for Joe Sebring to have been lying there for some amount of time before they moved him into the house. And it's theorised, isn't it, that they were trying to take them somewhere, and someone tried to run. One of them tried to run. Everyone assumes it's Sharon that tried to run, but why do people assume it was Sharon? Well, what if Jay tried to run to his car, and he envisioned swinging his car round and getting Sharon, but it all went wrong? Well, why does everyone assume it was Sharon that tried to run, but people assume it was Sharon that tried to run? Yeah. It is, it's horrible. And the fact that they cover up this bit as well, the fact that they don't tell you the full truth about how they even died makes it even more horrible, you know what I mean? It's just. Hmm. Oh, God, yeah, and Rudy out with Belly is supposed to have kept Sharon Tate's blood in the living room carpet and showed the stain to people, isn't he? Sick. It was the Manson murderers. Leslie Van Houten. Van Houten, sorry, so. She didn't take part in the Cielo Drive night. She took part in the Lobby Anchors the next night. Yeah, Leslie. Leslie is the one they've just let out, yeah. The houseboy. This is the other crazy thing about all the houseboys being around and all the talk of houseboys. People think that Garrettson and Stephen Parent might have been, and also Tex might have been on that scene before he met Manson. And they think that might be what he was doing at Dennis Wilson's house, because he was actually at Dennis Wilson's house before Charles Manson. If you watch interviews with Tex, he lies his arse off, right, and he makes out that Charles Manson was already there when he arrived at Dennis Wilson's house. But that's not true. Tex actually got there first. And people theorised that he was actually some kind of pool boy, and that that Garrettson and Parent and Tex all knew each other through that network. And there's the other one that's mentioned that who was Harrigan and Doyle's houseboy. He's supposed to have stole the money. Oh, what was his name? I've forgotten his name. Got a slide for that. I can't be asked to find it now, but that's another pool boy. But yeah, that's another theory. That somehow the pool boy network's involved in it all. But they would have been more likely to just want to rob, not actually murder people, and so they all sort of tried to back out when they realised people were getting murdered. But you don't get to back out. And Tex Watson is supposed to have lived at the guest house with Dean Morehouse for a time before the Polanskis moved in there. They tell you that the place was unknown to them, but Charles Watson had actually lived there before the Polanskis lived there and stuff like that, Yeah, I'm surprised that they let her out, to be honest. Apparently, the courts are ultra liberal now, and the governor, if he took it to the court, they could take away the governor's rights to intervene on parole hearings. So he was too scared to do it because he knew that they would probably overrule him, and they might take away the right for governors to intervene in the parole hearings if he didn't let her out. So yeah, basically. And she's a legal secretary. She spent all her time in prison studying law. You know what I mean? So she's been working this for years. That's it. Terence Cooksley. Terence Cooksley is the other pool boy, who was supposed to have robbed this money off of Harrigan and Doyle. But I think that sounds like a cover story for they somehow lost or blew a load of other people's money. And so they made up this story that the pool boy stole it and got him to say it, go around town telling it, basically. Yeah, she said later that her feet were so sore she couldn't put shoes on. Yeah, it doesn't suggest that they went up there to murder people dressed like that, does it? Yeah, yeah. She couldn't wear shoes because her feet were so bad, apparently. Right. Did someone say Dean was in jail when they said he lived there? I've not heard that. No, I haven't heard one, not yet. Anyway, someone will tell us. Yeah, Dean Morehouse is supposed to have lived there in the guest house. Yeah, that's it. It's the law. Yeah, because if you look into it as well, Leslie had the second and the third trial. Leslie's sentence was completely overturned. She was only convicted in the end of 2 counts of murder and for a completely different thing. So, like, yeah, she's legally they had to let her out. Basically, it was unfair not to. It was a travesty of justice. If you looked at her new conviction, that they didn't let her out. They should have let her out at some point in the 90s, according to how she was reconvicted. This is why they keep her other trials so quiet as well, because in the end they had to concede it was robbery in order to convict her. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to convict her. Right? So, like, why didn't all the others get a trial where they were allowed to say it was actually robbery? Yeah, so you found that, yeah, that Morehouse was in jail and was living elsewhere, and that was from the James Manson archives. Yeah, we should look at it, won't we? Yeah. Yeah, I might end this now because we've been going for 1 hour 17 minutes, and I'll come back and do an after stream. Yeah. Just so this doesn't get too tough to edit. Right. Yeah, so I'll end this now, and I'll upload a recorded interview at some point this week. And yeah, I don't know what I'll be talking about for my live next Sunday yet. But yeah, do get the interview where we talk about Billy Doyle and there's stuff about Harrigan. And there's even a story about Cass. There's other stuff. There's quite a lot of stuff to come. I don't want to spoil it though, yeah. But yeah, stay tuned for that interview when it happens. And I'll see you all in a minute if you want to stay for the after show. But if not, I'll see you next week. Thanks for coming anyway.